Hello, sweet friends. Thank you so much for stopping by. My name is Becky and welcome to Kinda Shabby. Each week I share kinda shabby but always chic, crafty inspirations. In today's video, I will be using some of my favorite shabby chic fabrics to create a beautiful pillow cover and a tea towel. For our pillow cover, we will be using this beautiful printable that I purchased from Etsy, and I will link her shop for you below. For this printable, I actually took thin cotton fabric and taped it to cardstock to send through my inkjet printer. I will have some suggestions for you in a few moments for those of you who really don't want to send fabric through your printer. I will also be using my cute little bunny cookie cutter to make a template for an applique for our tea towel. Next, we will be painting a mason jar and then use it to create a beautiful floral arrangement. We will then take these printables, which I will link for you below, and use them to create ornaments to adorn our mason jar floral arrangement. So let's go ahead and get these projects started. For those of you who don't want to send your fabric through the printer, you can use these iron-on transfer sheets. They say it's for t-shirts, but I have used these on so many other projects because you want to make sure that your wording is correct. So you would use the reversed image that comes in this purchased JPEG, and then you would print it onto your transfer sheet, put it down, and iron it on. And when we do our tea towel, you can also use just a tea towel that you have on hand and not create one like I am going to do. And we'll go ahead and get started in creating our new pillow cover. Again, my image is printed on some thin cotton material, and I used an ivory color because I wanted mine to have more of a vintage look. But I printed this out on white cardstock so you could see the difference in color. If you want to use a white background, the colors will be more vibrant versus if you use a ivory or some other color of fabric. And the pillow form that I'm using is a 20-inch pillow form, but my cover that I'm going to make is going to be just a little smaller because I like my covers to fit a little more snugly around my pillow form. I like combining patterns, and I'm going to use this pink buffalo check for the front and this little pink and white dot for the back. I printed this and let it dry overnight, and now I'm going to heat set the ink. And you want to have your iron on high, no steam, and I'm just going to put a cloth over this, and we're going to iron for a full 2 minutes, and we're just going to go back and forth until we have completely covered our image. It actually prints where it is not quite all the way to the bottom of an 8.5 by 11 piece. So I'm just going to go and cut this close to the edge so that way it is all going to be even. For the front of our pillow, I'm going to be stitching fabric down each side. Then I will be stitching a piece of fabric across the bottom and across the top to form a little frame around our centerpiece here. So for my two side pieces, I'm going to cut them 10.5 inches tall and 6 inches wide, and we'll get those cut and then stitched on to the sides. I am going to be placing them with the right sides together, pinning that together and stitching it down. I'm going to lay this here and do the same for the other. And now that it's all pinned up, I'm going to head over to the sewing machine here and stitch a 1/4 inch down each side. But you most certainly could use glue if you chose. So these are our side pieces, and I'm going to give these seams a quick press, and then we'll cut out and stitch our top and bottom pieces. And I have pressed the seam toward the bunny panel. So this piece here measures 19.25. So my top and bottom piece will be 19.25 inches long and 5 inches wide. And now I'm going to pin these to this edge here and this edge here and stitch those as well. All pinned up, and now I'm going to go stitch these together. And now I just need to give those seams a quick press and we'll be finished with the stitching of our front panel. So now we're left with a 19 1/4 by 19 1/4 square, and you would add your panels depending on what size pillow form you're working with, just to make sure that when you stitch in all of your seam allowances here and here, that it's going to be large enough for you to fit your pillow in. So let's go ahead and move to the back. To create an envelope back, I cut one piece 19 1/4 wide and 13 long, and I'm going to pin the right sides of the fabric together this way. And then the piece on the bottom that's going to overlap, it is 19 1/4 by 9, and I will be pinning that like this. So now all I have to do is get these pinned into place, stitch all around my square, and get my pillow form in there. And it's all pinned up for one last trip to the sewing machine. And now I'm going to clip my corners so they will be nice and crisp when I turn everything inside out. And now I'm going to turn it right side out and make sure my corners look good. And now I am left with an 18 by 18 inch square. And now we stuff. I just love my little bunny pillow. Now we're going to make a layered flower out of some laces and trims and such, and it's going to go right up here in this corner. For the base of my flower, I like to use a piece of felt, and then I'm going to trace around my mason jar to give me a nice circle. I like to have about a 2-inch circle, so anything along those lines will work just fine. And we're just going to cut out our circle, and then we will start adding on our embellishments. You guys really enjoyed the coffee filter flowers last week, and I think that you're going to enjoy these beautiful lace and tulle flowers just as much. So I start with my 2-inch circle. Then I take some tulle. Any color that you have will be nice as long as it coordinates, and I'm just using some blush pink. This is a piece of cardboard. I actually use this when I make my yarn tassels, and so I'm just going to take my tulle and I'm going to wrap it around about 4 times. And then I'm just going to pull that off, take a piece of string, and tie it up in the middle. Now you're going to come into your loops and you're just going to cut your loops apart, because that's going to form the tattered sides of our layered flower. And then we're going to fluff it. I'm just going to kind of clip in and make my edges a little ratty. That is all nice and tattered. I'm going to go ahead and hot glue this to the center of my little round piece of felt here. You do want to make sure that you glue it just to the center here, because we are going to be coming back in this area and gluing other things down in our layered flower. I have taken just a Dollar Tree rose here and cut it apart because we're going to be using these to layer in on our flower. So I'm cutting the petals apart, trim my petals down a little bit. It's kind of hard to see because everything is pink, but once we get them all on there, it will show up. And I'm going to go ahead and glue that in, but I'm only going to glue just one little bit right here because I am going to have to stagger those other petals in. Just like that. So I've tucked my other little petals back behind there. I haven't glued those down yet. So I'm going to glue those on, and then I'll come back with these other petals and tuck them behind there so it gives us a nice layered look like that. just filling in wherever you see you've got a bare spot. Now I'm going to take some of this awesome fuzzy trim and I'm going to glue it onto the edge right here. So that is going to be exposed all around the edges just like that. And if you don't have a trim like this, you could fray some burlap and glue that on there. That would look just as pretty too. And look how cute that is. That looks so fun already. We're going to set this aside for just a few minutes. And now we're going to get some lace. And I'm going to cut a foot-long section of my lace. And now you're going to need needle and thread, and I prefer to use a heavy-duty nylon, and we're going to make a running stitch along the length of our lace. And we're going to take our needle and go down and up, all the length of our lace here. So when we get to the end and we pull on that, that's going to make a nice little gathered flower for us. So we're at the end. We're just going to pull on our thread here, and then you'll just take your needle and you're just going to stitch the two ends of your lace together. Then you can take these two edges, you can stitch them together if you like, but I'm just going to rub just some excess glue that's on the tip of my glue gun here and just kind of tack those pieces together. And now we're going to take this and glue that to the center of our layered flower. Now you can put whatever you want in the center of your flower, but I am going to be using some bling here that I got from Amazon. I think that is going to be just gorgeous. That is just so pretty, but we are not finished yet. And now we're going to be making a little tassel using some lace, and I have two pieces cut into 24-inch long sections each. I have some beaded pearl trim, and I have 4 pieces that I cut into 9-inch long sections. And I also have some 5/8 inch wide grosgrain ribbon. And I'm just going to do a finger press in the middle just so I know where the middle of my ribbon is. And you're going to take your beaded trim 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And you're just going to glue that onto your ribbon. And it takes a couple seconds for this to set up. Just like that on your ribbon. You're going to take your second piece and you're going to glue down onto the ribbon and next to the other piece of your beaded trim. So it's nestled just like that. And you're going to do your third piece and your fourth piece in the same fashion, just gluing those together and nestling the pieces side by side. So when you get all of your pieces glued on, it will look like this. And now you'll take your lace and make sure it's folded in half, and you're going to come to the other side of your ribbon. So I'm going to glue that piece down. And now I'm going to take my pink lace, lay it between the ivory lace, and glue that down. So it looks like that. And now we're going to take this side and fold it over this side. And I like that. So now I'm just going to add glue to the top of my beads here and fold that over and glue my ribbon together. And I'm putting some along the edge here too, so when I fold this over, it all gets glued together. And that gives us a nice base for us to be able to glue onto the back of our layered flower. I'm putting it down the bottom edge of my layered flower, and I'm just going to press and hold that in until it sets. That is just beautiful, and it is going to be so pretty on our sweet little pillow. Because I want my flower to be removable, I am going to take a 1-inch piece of ribbon and I'm going to glue it on each end so this part is open. That way I can put a large safety pin in there and then use that to pin it onto my pillow. And now I can take my safety pin and open it up, insert that like that, bring in my pillow, and pin it to the corner. And how gorgeous is that? I just love that. So pretty. Well, let's go ahead and get this cleaned up and move on to our next project. For our next project, we're going to be doing our tea towel, and because I love this fabric, this is going to be the base of the tea towel. Then I will be using this fabric to create a ruffle at the bottom, and I'll also be cutting my bunny applique from this fabric as well. To save time, I went ahead and cut and ironed a 22-inch wide by 29-inch long rectangle, and now just going to fold up a 1/4 inch and do a press. Then I'm going to fold that in again and press. And then I'm going to go and stitch along this edge here. You most certainly could use hot glue, but I prefer to stitch mine. So I wanted my stitching to show, so I used just a nice pale pink thread. I'm just going to press my seams, and then we'll move on to our ruffle. So my tea towel base is 20 inches wide, and I want a nice ruffle, so I am going to cut a ruffle the entire length of my fabric, which is 44 inches. I made a snip 6 inches high, and I'm just going to rip that. And I'm going to give this a good press before I start constructing my ruffle. I don't mind that tattered edge, but I am going to be applying this lace to the bottom. It's easier if I do that first before I gather the ruffle up, and I will be using my quick grip to just simply glue that into place. And I work in small sections, and you just run a little bead of the glue and then just press that into place. And so that's what I'm going to be doing down the entire length of my ruffle here. And what I like about the quick grip, it maintains its flexibility. There's no hard line like you would have with hot glue. Until the glue actually sets up, it's repositionable, and you don't risk burning yourself like you would with hot glue. So now I'm going to go and do a machine stitch to make a loose gathering stitch on my sewing machine. So now that it is all gathered, what I've done is taken and pinned one end into the ironing board that I made, so it's not going to go anywhere, and that helps me adjust the gathers before I actually pin it and stitch it down. And now that I have my ruffle at the right length, I'm going to take it and put the right sides of my fabric together, and I am going to pin my ruffle all along this edge right here. And then I'll head back over to the sewing machine and stitch this all into place. All pinned up and ready to stitch. I like it. That is going to be so cute. Now I'm going to give it a good press. Then to prevent further fraying along this edge, I'm just going to trim that down a little bit with my pinking shears. So I'm trimming that off just like that. And now I'm going to turn this over and press out the seam this way. And now I have folded it into thirds so I can get an accurate placement of my little bunny applique. I'll be using my cookie cutter as a template, but any bunny template that you have will be just fine. And then I will be using some heat and bond to actually apply the applique to my towel. I want to try and use most of this section here for the actual applique itself. I'm just going to cut a square of this fabric around my bunny so I know it's going to be large enough for me to make my applique from. Then I'm going to give this a little press. And now I'm going to take my heat and bond, and I'm just going to cut a square the same size as my fabric square. So your heat and bond has a paper side. And it also has a nubby, shiny side, and that is where your adhesive is. You want to place that adhesive nubby side down onto the back of your fabric. You also want to make sure you lay something down to protect your ironing board. You don't want to get that adhesive on your ironing board. And then you're just going to hold for 2 seconds and move your iron, and you're just going to continue holding for 2 seconds at a time until you have covered your fabric. And then you're going to allow that to cool. Now I'm going to play around with the placement of my bunny to get as much of that pattern into my little template here, and then I will trace and cut it. And that looks good. So now I'm going to just cut my bunny template out. And there's our little applique. That is so cute. And now we're just going to peel the paper off the back. And when you peel that off, you'll see that that is very shiny and there's more adhesive on this side. And now we decide where we want our applique. Then I'm going to open this up to make sure I don't get any adhesive on my iron. I'm going to cover this. And we're going to press and hold and keep moving. Now this time we're going to hold for 8 seconds. I love that. We are almost finished with our tea towel. Now I'm using more of my quick grip, and I'm going to apply this little pom-pom to our little bunny. And then I'm going to apply this pom-pom trim along my seam right here to finish that off. And here is our sweet little shabby tea towel. How adorable is that? So let's go ahead and move on to our next project. To paint our mason jar, I'm going to be using the Waverly chalk paint in the color Ballet Slipper. And I've poured some into a smaller mason jar. That just makes it easier to get your brush into. And this is a wide mouth jar. That way it makes it easy to get your hand in there. And I just start at the bottom and just start brushing on. Then once I have the bottom done, I just put it on my little turntable here. It just makes it so much easier to paint. And I just slap the paint on there, and then I come back and bring my brush strokes up. And there we go. We're going to set this off to the side and let it dry. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and start working on our little ornaments for our floral arrangement. So we need to cut our ornaments into circles, and I have found that the ring around the wide mouth mason jar is the perfect size. So I'll be tracing around my mason jar ring and cutting all of these circles out, and then we will begin decorating them. And I'm just going to keep these simple, and I'm going to glue 3 of them with the pink pom-pom trim around the edge and 3 with the white pom-pom trim around the edge. And I just work in small sections, putting down a little bit of glue, tapping the pom-pom trim into it, and that makes it easier to shape it around your circle. And there's one. Look how cute that is. So adorable. So I'm just going to continue gluing on the trim around here, and then we'll do a punch and put our ribbon in to hang. Those are really cute. I think they're adorable. Now I'm going to take my hole punch, and I'm just going to punch a hole in the middle. I'm actually going to be punching like right between the rabbit ears, right in this section here. There's a nice little space right there for a hole. Just like that. So I cut my ribbon at 1 foot long, form a loop in the center, bring the loop through the hole, and bring the tails through the loop and pull that to adjust, and then just tie off the top up here. Just like that. I'm doing white ribbon on the pink trim and pink ribbon on the ones with the white trim. So I'm going to finish putting my ribbon through the holes here, and then we are going to wax our mason jar. To protect the painted surface of our mason jar, I am going to be using some white wax. You don't have to use white wax. You could use clear wax, or you could even spray on a polyacrylic sealer. Anything that you have on hand that is going to seal your paint will be just fine. Dab off a little bit just to make sure that I've worked it into my brush really well. And then I'm just going to apply in a circular motion. You can take a paper towel or any kind of a rag, and we're just going to wipe off our excess. And you can see that the excess kind of settles into the crevices there of the details, and I like that look. So I am going to be covering the entire jar in the same fashion. And then once I've covered the entire jar, we're going to go ahead and get our floral arrangement in there. This photo here out of my Country Living magazine is actually the inspiration for this project. However, with it being spring, I really couldn't find a whole lot of plain branches for me to glue some flowers onto. So Mr. Shabby went out and cut all of these cute little twigs for me from our cypress tree that is just beginning to sprout its little leaves, and I just love that. I cut down a piece of floral foam that's going to fit down inside. I'm just going to take my snips and start by inserting these how I think they look good. And I want to get them down far enough in there that water is actually going to reach the bottom there. So I'm just going to keep playing around with the placement of my little twigs here until it looks right to me. So I like how that looks. And then I took a Dollar Tree floral and actually pulled off all of those little blossoms. And now I'm just going to take my glue gun and I'm just going to go back in and just randomly glue some of these little florals. And you just randomly glue them around until it looks right to you. I like how that looks. I'm just going to take some Spanish moss and I'm going to cover up all of this here. So that is what it looks like with all of our moss in there. And now to add just another little shabby chic touch, I am taking some of this beautiful lace here and I am going to hot glue that all around the outside edge of the lip of my jar, and that's just going to set that off and make it oh so shabby. Now all I have to do is get my little ornaments hung. I love my little bunny ornaments and I think that looks so cute. Now all I need to do is get everything staged up and show you how great all of this week's projects turned out. And we're back because this didn't work. Every time I put the water in there, it makes my foam float up. Then the water isn't getting to all of my branches, so they're all dying. So plan B. I'm going to take it apart and strip off all of the foliage here, and then we'll come back and get some other stuff going on here. Sometimes stuff just doesn't work out how you think it's going to, and you just got to stop and regroup. So I pulled everything off and it looks a whole lot better. The only problem is the little white flowers that I had on there cannot be reused. So now we're going to be using some crepe paper to make crepe paper blossoms. Our crepe paper blossoms are going to be so quick and easy. All you need is some crepe paper, your stapler, and a pair of scissors. So we're going to take our crepe paper and fold it, and that looks like 2 inches. We're just going to fold it back and forth on itself like this. I'm going to cut this here. And you want to make sure that you folded it over so you have 6 to 8 pieces of your crepe paper. Then you're just going to staple that in the middle. Take your scissors and cut your loops apart. Now we're going to round off the edges so our blossoms are nice and smooth. And now all we're going to do is take each of our layers. So the first one, we really want to squish that one and give that one a twist because that's going to be the center of our blossom. And then we're just going to keep bringing the rest of these up. And we're going to pinch around the center of our blossom here. I think I'm going to make some of various sizes, some smaller and some larger. And there's our little crepe paper blossom. How cute is that? So I'm just going to keep making more of my little blossoms here, and I'm going to get them glued onto the branches just like I had the little white flowers on there, and hopefully plan B works out. I've started gluing some on, and I think it looks better already. And then when you cut your paper into various sizes, that is how you get larger or smaller blossoms. Now all I need to do is get it all staged up so you can see how beautiful all of our projects turned out, even when you have to have a plan B. love how my crepe paper blossoms turned out. Sometimes you just gotta regroup when a project doesn't turn out the way you want it to. Thank you so much for spending a bit of your time here with me today. I truly appreciate you. Please remember to subscribe for more kinda shabby but always chic, crafty inspirations. And until next week, my sweet friends, be blessed.